Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Imperfect Men's Club podcast. My name is Mark Aylward, and I'm here as always with my good friend, colleague, and co-host Jim Gurley. Another interesting pregame, Jim, and that's again based on events and stories that are in our recent past days or weeks, and we were thinking about similar things again. But before I forget, for those of you listening, I really would we would like to ask a favor of you. Um, if you would, if this resonates with you, and you have not yet done so, head on over to Apple, and because that's where we get the most juice out of this exercise. You can share, review, like, post, whatever mechanisms exist on whatever platform, but the most impact apparently comes from a review with 5 stars, which is a fairly simple thing to do, and do it at Apple on the iTunes platform. Because we get to a certain level of those, and it's not big, it's like 20 of them. We get extra juice, we get extra exposure. So if you would all do that kindly, we sure would appreciate it. But let's roll. So, on the topic, what we've come up with is because of a circumstance that Jim was aligned with, is we had a young person. Jim had a young person ask him if he were 15 again, what would he do differently? And exactly, I do have one question though. I'm reading this now. If you could go back to being 15, what would you have done differently? And Jim responded very thoughtfully. And then the conversation that we started having was, is that a comprehensive list? Those are really cool things. What would you add or change? And then how cool it was for such a young person to ask such a wise question. And then once again, Jim, it just aligns almost perfectly like a glove with our wheel in the 5 areas of life. So that's kind of magical.
Yeah, just to add to what you said, Mark, it's impressive that a 15-year-old at the time would ask a question like that. So it says a lot about this young person. What's interesting is I remember when the question came in, and I paused and realized the impact that these answers would have on her. So she asked a very important question at a very important time of her life.
Mm-hmm.
She's a young woman, or at that time, becoming woman, a girl becoming a young woman, just no
Mm-hmm.
different than a boy becoming a young man. And um, the advice that you give somebody uh, could change their life. And
It sure could. Yeah, I'm going to add a little bit of the context in your response before I get to the 5 things that you recommended. So you said, excellent question. However, my answer would not be fully transferable or beneficial to you. It was a different time, place, and circumstances. I believe success in life comes down to discipline and consistency of doing the simple things every day. See my responses below. It's also as much about what not to do as it is what to do. However, here are a few things that will certainly improve your circumstances in life if applied daily. And then you
yeah,
listed 5. So you want to take them on one at a time?
I do, but thank you for reading that because I wrote that and kind of forgot most important. I think the first thought was she looks at my life and she's extrapolating, believing that some of the things that I experienced at the time and the place are transferable, and they're not, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was a different time. We forget about that. So I was very cautious to give her advice based on my childhood, which
Mm-hmm.
she was asking for, because I don't believe they are transferable. Different time, different place, different circumstances. So that's super important. Again, if you're going to give advice to somebody, you know, understand their circumstances enough that you don't give them bad advice. Because I think the worst advice
Well,
in life
yeah.
is bad advice, better than no
Yeah.
advice. So,
Well, I think what you're also doing there is you're providing context to your response, which is, I think that's just the responsible thing to do because, I we both bump into a lot of people that share opinions as if they're facts and facts that are only feelings and it's like I just want to contextualize this that there are no guarantees, right? And I think that the most important piece of information that I've seen thus far is consistently doing simple things every day. And then the question becomes, well, what are those simple things? And I'm
Mhm.
fascinated by your point about it's just as important what you don't do, and
Yes.
if not more important,
Yeah,
right?
us talk about that before we move on to the five answers that I provided her. But yeah, I think that's probably the number one. It's not what you do sometimes in life, but the focus is always on you. If you do this and you do this, you'll get this. You do this. No, sometimes if you don't do that, you don't do drugs, you don't get you don't get pregnant, you don't uh, do drugs, all these different things that have a much negative impact. So that was my first advice to her. Don't get too obsessed or overwhelmed with what to do. Slow down and think about what not to do, because
Mm-hmm.
the impact that that's going to have um, will have a greater impact on your life long term than anything else. So that's yeah.
No, and the other thing is that this is advice for a 15-year-old, but it's applicable to no matter what your age is. It's like what do they say? The best time to plant a tree was 40 years ago. The
Yeah,
next best time is right now,
yeah.
you know?
So, but yeah, I'm interested in yours, Mark. So, just in general, what would advice would you give to a 15-year-old? And then we'll break these down individually.
Well, my vote would be to do that piece in the context of your list.
Okay, let's go. Yeah.
So if you're cool with that, the first one that you gave was number one, minimize wasting valuable time on social media. Well, to your point, we didn't even have social media. But
But
I bet you could find some things that we shouldn't be wasting our time doing,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it's probably
yeah. This
TV.
this one I thought was interesting, because even when you and I spoke yesterday, you had shared with me that you had backed off your consumption of news or whatever it was,
A
and you started.
100%. I don't watch or listen to it anymore. And
Yeah,
when I wrote my post about it the other day, I said I had a significant shift in my emotional
yeah,
health and well-being in 2 days.
that's right. Yeah.
Two
So
days, Jim.
yeah, now that I think about this, I was probably talking to myself as much as I was giving advice to myself as much as I was giving
Every
advice
time
to her.
every time I give advice to anybody, I'm talking to myself
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, think I'm not a big social media person. I don't do Instagram. I don't do TikTok or any of those. But I have been known to get on a short video of YouTube channels and waste a lot of time. And I feel like crap when I'm done. It's like eating
Oh yeah.
a
Oh
10
yeah.
candy bars.
And
And
it's like and it's 2 or 3 hours later and you're like,
yeah,
holy shit, that was like I thought that was 15 minutes.
that's
You know?
right. That's right. And you can
Yeah.
you imagine for a uh, young person with that phone in their hand, and they're just
I don't
flipping
know
through
how they do it.
TikToks.
I remember
Well,
watching
it's
my
not easy. It's not good for your mental health, but
no,
also
no, no, no. And you take AI and throw that in there too and God knows what else is there. It's just so it's bad. It's bad juice. It's bad juju, I
yeah.
think the contextual addition I would add to your number one is just an expansion on wasting your time, in my experience, is doing
Hmm.
things that are not productive,
Hmm.
that are not making you, excuse me, any better,
Hmm.
or nor is it making anyone around you any better. So that list of just social media could involve a lot of other things.
Yeah,
There's
media consumption in general, I think, is your
media
point.
consumption in general. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
pornography. I mean, anything that is not making you a better person.
Hmm.
What you're reading, what you're watching, who you're hanging around with.
Hmm.
These are all additional. I remember my father coming to me when I think I was probably around 14, maybe 13, maybe 15, and he said about this one kid I'd been hanging around with, like, this, good friends with somebody at 6, that person's
Hmm.
a different person at 14 or 15. That's when you
Oh yeah.
start making the good choices and the bad choices, right? Drinking,
Yeah. Yeah.
drugs, girls,
Yeah.
whatever.
So let's
And
go to number two.
so it's like number two, minimize or eliminate drugs that you put into your body, including prescriptions.
Yeah, the reason drugs in general, we know, especially if you're 15 years old, smoking pot, whatever you're doing, it's available, it's around all the time. But I specifically put in parentheses prescription drugs, because at that stage in your life, as a child, or you don't know, you're just taking the drugs that the doctor prescribed. That's what you do, right? But as a young uh, adult or a young woman in this case, read the label, understand the side effects, understand how that could be affecting other parts of your life. We've talked about this before. In fact, the work that your daughter does is remarkable in this sector in this area,
Yep.
and the side effects of most of these prescription drugs are so many times far worse than the the um, the the problem they were trying to fix.
Yeah, I
And
think there's an important point to be made here, I think, that, at least from my perspective, and that is what you were also dealing with here is this mainstream information that you're what we're telling people here is not what everyone believes, because there are a lot of people that still believe what the
yes,
doctors tell them to do is the right thing to do,
that's why I specifically
yeah,
said
yeah,
that.
it's not. So
I'm also
now
saying not listen to the doctor, but a good patient. To be a good doctor, you have to be a good patient, and to be a good patient, you should you should ask questions. You should challenge the doctor,
that's
and if
right.
he's a good doctor, he'll appreciate that. If it's a bad doctor, then you need to get a second opinion.
Yeah,
Um,
if a doctor is reticent to answer your questions, you need to get another doctor. You
yes,
know, I think that's a
absolutely.
flat, true statement. And I
Yeah.
think that this is not conspiracy theory stuff. This is, to your point, I think that another one of the lessons to extract from your number two is questions are your friend.
Hmm.
Questioning things is how you learn. Questioning
Hmm.
things is how you get to the truth. Questioning
Yeah.
things is how you discuss disagreeable
Hmm.
issues with people with whom you disagree. So,
Hmm.
boy, you
And that
start
doesn't
learning
apply just to drugs. That implies anything. Ask a lot of questions. You know,
all
I, I,
everything.
I like I like young people that ask questions. A lot of them good questions, but they ask questions because they're learners. And so, yeah,
And you know what, Jim? You said it about this young lady. What a wise thing for a young person to ask.
yeah,
When someone, and I'm saying this as an adult, right? If a young person, and it's happened a lot, I did it with all my kids' friends when they found out what I did for a living. They would come, and some of them asked great questions that you could tell they were courageous, they were confident, they were
curious.
intelligent,
Yeah.
they were respectful, they were
Hmm.
curious. And it's like, you know how adults respond to that? With grace. We love that's so
Yes.
flattering. It's so exciting
Yeah.
for me to see that
Yeah.
glimmer in a young
Yeah. We
person's
get as much
eyes.
out of it as they do because we
Totally.
get to,
You should have watched yourself talking about this story in the pregame. You were very
yeah.
proud of it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting that but yeah. And that was seated in this answer to this question was um, to remind her that remember if you're 15 you don't know what adults think, you don't know what they're thinking,
Hmm.
you just don't know, you don't know what you don't know. But I was giving her permission to question things, you know, and not just uh, the people around you, the other adults, but not in a negative way, but in a curious way, and
Curious
then
way.
see
Yeah.
where
Well,
that
that's what
goes.
I say. You know, one of the qualities of a good leader, I think, or a good mentor is just that is you have to recognize what the responsibility you've just been given is.
Yeah.
And if you don't reflect on that response with her thoughtfully, which you did, then you're being irresponsible, which you weren't. But
Yeah.
I would gather that there are a lot of adults that, you know, this doesn't work for all adults, right? It's like this works for adults that
Mm.
you trust and love, that love you and trust you as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
you,
Mark, I appreciate what you said though about there are still certain groups of people, not a criticism, just an observation, that worship doctors and whatever they say, what they say. And I understand that you know, doctors, I'm certainly not giving medical advice. All I was saying is ask questions, understand the side effects, read the studies, read the label, and
hmm.
understand what you're putting in your body because it does affect you. Everything is connected.
Yeah. Well, I think
Yeah.
that's that another piece of advice that you just pulled off of that is don't make assumptions. When you make assumptions in life,
Yeah.
you take actions that are not coherent. You take actions that are not aligned.
Hmm.
And that's where the questions come in. You know,
Hmm. Hmm.
questions get the assumptions gone.
Yeah.
So, how about number three? Minimize or eliminate processed food that you put into your body.
Hmm.
Ah, yeah. I mean, here we are. I mean, we grew up with the food pyramid, which was a crock of shit. you
Turned
know?
out to be,
Yeah.
hasn't it?
Yeah. But
Yeah.
it was
The only thing I
purposeful.
will defend about that though is at that time there was not as many processed foods. Like the butter was really butter
Yep.
and the
Yep. Yep.
salt was really salt. It was the sugar was really sugar. So
Yeah.
in
Everything we ate was
fairness,
organic. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that's but yeah, this is a big deal because you put processed food into your body every day and it's going to affect the way you feel, the way you look. And again, if you're a kid, you don't know. You're just eating whatever's in front of you. But
Well, you know,
as a young adult,
it gives rise
you
to a
you have to be
couple of,
responsible
yeah.
for that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the parents are critical in this because that's where you get your habits at least out of the gate, you know. And I was fortunate in that regard. I don't think most people are because we're accepting things that we've done a lot of discovery around since then, and a lot of innovation has taken place, and we know stuff we didn't know back then. But I would add to that number three, Jim. It's not just the food that you put into your body; it's what you put on your body, what the noises you let in your ears, what the
Mhm.
visuals are that you let in your eyes, and the people you hang around with. You know, it's like any of those like six senses, right? Five or six senses, that's all getting in, right? Even when you
Yeah.
put it on, it's getting
Yeah.
in, you
Yeah.
know? And
I think this specifically was it's not what you put in your mouth, it's what you put in your shopping cart. It really is that simple. And
mhm.
it's not what's in your refrigerator. It's how it got into your refrigerator. So it all starts and I think at 16 you're old enough where you can drive or you can go grocery shopping with your mother or father,
You
whoever
can
it
make
is,
those choices, yeah.
and make those choices.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're at the difference, but again, between a girl and a young woman is that you can decide what you put into your body
Mhm.
and help your mother or your father out. I don't think there's a parent that wouldn't appreciate their 15-year-old to go shopping and help them select the right groceries. And
Give them their input. Yeah, give them their
sure.
input. It's funny. There's a quick aside as I wrote. I just thought of. I was writing about judgment in terms of surrendering things and getting blocks out of the way, and I my head just went right to the supermarket. So I don't think I've ever been to the grocery store and not looked at the cart of the person in front of me and had my head just explode going, "Are you fucking kidding me? You don't know that's poison for you? Like how about a salad, Johnny?" You know? And it's like this it's like I'm judging this person, and thank God I've never opened my mouth. But it's interesting how active this particular topic is in my mind, and and obviously in yours as well. What we put in ourselves. You
Yeah. Can you imagine buying a 24 pack of Coke and put
know?
down in and you're putting that in your grocery cart and then bringing that home? That means you're going to put 24 cans of fake sugar into your body.
Yeah,
Think
yeah.
what that does to every part of your body. So,
Yeah, and it's I think that we trust um, too much, and I think one of the challenges that young people have growing up is like, well, who do I trust, and
mhm.
who should I not trust? And that's a tough question, you know. But because I think the person bringing home the 24 pack of Coke does not believe they're doing anything wrong.
No, they really don't. No,
Yeah.
again, that's just that's their environment. And same with fast food. It's the same thing. It's just convenience. I need to get something to eat. I'm hungry. Stop and get a burger,
Well, I
some
suppose
fries,
on
and a
some
Coke.
level it's lazy. I suppose on
Yeah,
some level because
yeah,
convenience is typical just for the sake of convenience is lazy. So
yeah.
Number four, hydration and exercise every day.
Mhm.
Yeah, it sounds like both of us were pretty fortunate. We started running around at a pretty young age, and we were encouraged, I suppose, to run around. But again, the circumstances were that's just what we did. We were never allowed to stay inside. We were always encouraged to go outside. So they weren't encouraging us, I don't think, to exercise as much as they were getting us out of their hair. But there weren't the tools. Wasn't the technology. But you know, I played
Yeah, we were
sports just like
outside
you.
every day because we had to walk to school, and it was just different. And again, this advice isn't just about our childhood at 15. It's what we know that uh, hydration is very important, especially when you wake up in the morning. And most people are dehydrated.
Yes.
And again, back to prescription drugs as well. Look at that. Look at the side effects. Causes dehydration. So you could be taking a prescription drug is causing dehydration, and that's sometimes the underlying problem. the
Well, I
side
think
effects of
hydration
dehydration.
is
Yeah.
it's not only one of the most important things, but it's also one of the easiest things to
Yep.
do.
Hmm.
And making it a habit. And I don't know how, I mean, it depends on your size and on your physical
Yeah.
exertion. It depends on a lot of things, but just having sipping on a glass of water all day is probably a good idea, you know. And if you want to go
Yeah.
deeper into the science, there's plenty of available science, you know.
Yeah. Although the science is interesting about water, I found out recently that they started putting fluoride in water, which sounded like a good idea a long time ago because you needed fluoride for cavities. But there's too much fluoride. We get fluoride in other ways. Also, there's chlorines. There's chemicals in the water. They have to do that to purify it. But that's also not good for our body. So electrolytes and it's not just water anymore. You have to kind of be careful not to just drink any water
Yeah, I
because
think
the
that
electrolytes in that. Yeah.
the best thing I've done with that is I just got a really high end water filter for my house, and if you can't do that because that can be thousands of dollars, then you can just stick one on your sink. That put
Yeah.
it on the faucet that you use the most for drinking water,
Mhm.
and doing something about that as opposed to nothing is a
Mhm.
no brainer.
Yeah.
You know.
The most I find simplest thing to do is when you wake up in the morning, have a large glass of water because
Mhm.
your body's most uh, dehydrated when you're sleeping. And that alone will at least set up your day so you have some hydration in you and then you go from there. But
And
yeah.
you know the exercise thing, Jim, I think that just to say exercise is probably irresponsible. So I want to add just a little context to
Mhm.
that, and it's particularly as you get older, but at any time for someone like this young lady, if she's not moving around, then any movement is good, right? So what does movement look like? Well,
Mhm.
don't take the elevator, take the stairs. When
Mhm.
you park somewhere, park far away. So you have to walk in and you have to walk. Don't look for the closest parking space. There's all kinds of little things like that. You don't have to do anything different during the course of your day except turn that knob just a little bit to the left or right. It's not like go to the gym 5 times a week and work out like an animal. That's, yeah, if you want to, great.
Yeah, just
But
movement.
you can
But
get
in this
better
day and
just
age,
by,
it's easy to sit in front of a screen
yep,
and not move. I mean, this is nothing to do with this, young woman. This is in general. This is general advice, right? This is not.
mhm,
This is, but yes, I think it's very easy in this day and age to sit in your house, look at your screen all day long, and then realize you never went out and had natural sunlight. You never
yep,
moved around. This has happens to millions and millions of people. So
yep.
again,
Yeah, well, I
not
think
unique to.
that's a good additional point is that sun.
Yeah.
I've had plenty of people who I trust and respect just get out there for like 5 minutes. Just get the sun on
Yeah.
your face for 5 minutes first thing in the morning. Have your glass of water. Walk around the block. You know, it's like
Mhm.
that's a much better day than yesterday if you weren't doing those things, right?
Yeah.
And they're
Well, yeah,
simple.
to your point, Mark, natural sunlight is really important for the body and the eyes. Same with vitamin D and sun and
Yeah, well, we don't
exposure.
get vitamin D in almost anything, so we have
Mhm.
to kind of manufacture that a little. And for somebody, a Mick like me, I can't handle too much sun. I get red.
Yeah.
You know, and you got a full head of hair, so I got two problems you don't have. So,
Yeah. Uh,
um, so number five is work to improve and be the very best at things you're good at and that you enjoy doing. That's very interesting, Jim, because you may recall I wrote a workbook called Find Your True Purpose, and it's pretty much summed up in your number five. Are you good at it? Do you love doing it? How can you get better at it? Right. And then
Mhm.
I also added, is there a way that you can monetize that skill,
Mhm.
which is probably something for her later on in life. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean that's I think it was John Wooden, the UCLA basketball coach, that said success is the peace of mind that you did the very best, knowing that you did the very best you could to be the best that you could at what you're doing.
Mhm.
That's a paraphrase, but it's exactly what you're talking about here. And my
Yeah,
dad,
what I was referring to is we all have unique abilities. Some people are good at other things and other people are not. And what I was trying to impress on her was uh, typically you like to do things that you're good at. So try to avoid the things you're not very good at. And there used to be this, well, improve yourself and your weaknesses. Well, of course, there's certain things you need to improve yourself on, but go in on what you're good at because then it's easy, it's fun, and then you make that your superpower, your unique ability, and everybody has that. it's finding out what that is. Um, Somebody that
Yeah,
had to,
and
but if
yeah,
you focus too much on what you're not good at, that's not good for your confidence. That's not good for your mental health. So it
no,
really
no.
is.
Well,
Uh,
I think the other thing that kind of strikes me about that is that you also have to make a decision as early on as you possibly can because you can't do everything, you know, and if you're cursed with being able to do a few different things really well, you still have to pick one. I mean, the Deion Sanders are of the world are very rare. You know, most people, you know, probably most of the guys that you played sports with that had professional abilities had to drop something to focus on something else.
yeah.
You know, so that's a consideration as well. And yeah, my dad likes to say, "How you doing today versus how you were doing 12 months ago today."
Mhm.
And that's just another way of looking at the same thing through a slightly different lens. But
Yeah.
yeah, try and get better at stuff every day. Try and make today a little better than yesterday.
Mhm.
And you know, but I like you've said, I think this most of my advice to add to this is just nuance. You know,
Mhm.
it's just nuance. I think like my conversation with my own daughter last night, one of the things I tried to get across a couple of times was, look, it sounds like you're complicating things. I think some of these things would be easier for you to deal with if you were figured out a way to break them up into some simpler parts and work on them one part at a time. I think simplicity, the more simple you can make your situation, the more productive you can be. And I think human nature is we complicate everything,
Mhm.
right? It seems to be a default. That's been my experience anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Then the final one is, what doesn't break you makes you. So adversity and overcoming challenges, that's life. And encouraged to push through those, to push through the resistance to the other side. It's hard, but it's life. And that was kind of the final
Yeah,
advice I gave
I think
a 15-year-old.
that's part of any good advice. I think you know, we talk about it's really not about what happens to you. It's about how you respond to what happens to you. And you like the terms bitter and or you want to get bitter, or you want to get better. But I think that, you know, I reflect back on some of my hardships and I think, did I ever really was I ever tempted to say, whose fault is this other than mine? I don't think so. I think my instincts were, and I would want them to be if they weren't. I'm gonna react to this by saying, okay, that's what happened. Maybe I go to why did that happen? You know, is what could I do to preclude that from happening again? And then how do I fix whatever it's done to put me in that situation? It's a proactive, optimistic, hopeful response to learn as opposed to feeling guilty or to regret it or try and look elsewhere to blame someone, which doesn't do anybody any good. So
Yeah.
that responding, how you respond to hardship, push through it, like you say, but not,
Mhm.
you know, not overthink it. Why did it happen? Oh, woe is me. That's not productive.
I would agree. So, well, that'll wrap this up, Mark. Until next week, I think this would advice I would give any 15-year-old and any person in general.
Yeah,
What are your
yeah. I
final
think
thoughts?
my frustration with giving advice, and I'm kind of in the business of giving advice, is people have to be ready to hear the advice,
Mhm.
right? And so that's a whole nother topic. But you know, and when you're really young, you don't know what time is. You know, you don't know what time is. So we like to infuse our wisdom on people, but that doesn't mean people are actually going to take us up on it. So you
That's
got to
true.
kind of pick your spots. You know.
Yep. All right. Until next week.
Thanks, Jim.